Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming back to the channel. This is going to be a kind of a profound commentary this morning because it's about our rights. It's about the real meaning of the Constitution and the culture of America. Now, keep in mind, I'm going to focus on the Bill of Rights, and I want to restate what that is. The top 10, the Bill of Rights, is a warning against government, to leave those alone, right? They talk about the things that government is constrained to deal with, not just the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is important, of course. All of them are important, believe it or not. But those are warnings to government that they cannot infringe on any of those 10. Now, the recent Supreme Court decision, New York Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruen, which was a Second Amendment issue, brought up the real power of the Constitution against government. It is against government. The Constitution doesn't give us anything. The Bill of Rights doesn't give us anything. It affirms what we already have and says to government, you got to leave that alone. Now, let's talk about what that means, what that Bruen decision meant. It said, to governments, small, medium, and large, if you're going to touch the third rail of any of those 10, you had really better have a real good reason. And oh, by the way, this balancing of, it's an individual right, but the government has a public interest, public safety. We have an interest in government in addressing public safety, and the individual right, and we'll try to be as careful as we can, but balance public safety, balance public interests, which means what the government wants to do, whether or not it has anything to do with public interest. It has. When they say public interest and public safety, they're talking about maintaining their power to control the individuals in the public. This really came up when remember the beer virus and all the lockdowns and the mandatory this and the mandatory that. Government was saying to you, we're going to make you do that. When we talk about the Second Amendment, governments who don't like armed citizens, because armed citizens are hard to control. Governments that don't like armed citizens will say, it is in the public interest because, people with guns kill people, and we don't want anybody to die, so we're just going to constrain that right because of public safety and public interest. Well, the recent Supreme Court decision said, nope, you can't do that. Your governmental interest of public interest and public safety has no bearing. The individual right has the bearing, and unless you have a compelling reason that's based on history, tradition, and the text of what was written, sucks to be you, government. And what we see right now is a total collapse of all of the controls about the Second Amendment. And we're going to start to see some address religion, both freedom of religion and freedom from religion, as an example. We're going to have some free speech things come up. But the real one, where this public interest, public safety thing came up, was around guns. People will say, well, they're just The public is afraid. Well, then they need counseling. Go give them Xanax or something, you know. The rest of the world looks at us and says, you guys are crazy. No, we're not crazy. We are free. We are free. And they hate that, especially those countries that were granted their independence from the colonial powers that owned them. Please keep in mind, Canada is not free. Canada is part of the British Commonwealth. The Queen's picture is on their money. The Queen's picture hangs in every government office. That's not free. That's a country that's operating under the permission of the Crown. Oh, people talk about the United Kingdom, Britain, England, Scotland, and Wales is the United Kingdom. That they have a constitution, that is bullshit. They have gentlemen's agreement, handshakes over the last 1,000 years that can be changed on a whim. Our Constitution is written, and oh, by the way, this energy, and it comes from a lot of different areas, this energy to say we need to change the Constitution to make it more modern. Every tyrannical country in the world does that crap. Well, such and such a country is going to change their Constitution. I mean, like total rewrite to make it match what? To make it match the whims of those in power. The American Constitution prevents that. The American Constitution says, let's talk about the Second Amendment, your right to keep and bear arms is a right. It cannot be infringed. And so you have governments saying, we don't like that. Why? Because civilians are armed. So, don't be stupid and they won't bother you. You see what I'm saying? America is unique in that way. Also keep in mind, to you other people around the world, America is one of two countries in the Western Hemisphere that threw off a monarchy from Europe. America and Haiti. Think about that. And Haiti has been punished by all of the European countries, including the United States, ever since, because that was not just a independence thing like we had. That was throwing off an entire slavery regimen. Haiti was a slave revolt for independence, and slave owners, including America, hated that, and Haiti has been punished ever since. America, on the other hand, threw off the king, and we took our country by force. By force. We took our country by force. And we ingrained in the culture and maintained in the culture the violence that's based on that. We are a violent country by nature. And those who would argue to change that, you have a right to be here, and you're American citizens to the degree that you are. But at your peril, you try to change America from being a country based on violence in the name of justice to one that accepts the will of those in power. America is not a country designed to have its citizens roll over for those in government. And those in power are the ones that want to disarm us. Those in power are the ones that want to say, we need to change our Constitution to make it more modern. Our Constitution is perfectly modern. And it does have a mechanism for change. But there are people that say it takes too long. Well, it's supposed to. Why? Because we individuals are stupid. We are ruled by our emotions, our feelings. And you cannot run a country based on feelings, right? And when it talks about individual rights, feelings don't matter. The rights matter more than your feelings. There's nothing that protects how you feel about anything. Nobody cares. The people who wrote the Constitution don't care. What they care about is a misuse of power by government against individuals. That is what makes us unique as a country. And yeah, it takes a while. If there are changes that should be made, there's got to be a whole lot of people across the country agree to that. Women's Rights Amendment was like 35 years trying to get people to agree, right? Some amendments didn't take so long. The prohibition and then the repeal of prohibition. Those didn't take too long. Why? Because everybody in the country liked to drink their gin, and they were pissed. But the people that wanted prohibition were pissed when it was repealed. Hey, sucks to be them. There were people that wanted slavery. There are people today that would love for slavery to come back in all of its forms because it's a good economic thing. But that's not going to happen. There are people that want to disarm, take away the ability, the right of individual citizens to be armed. That's not going to happen. Now, I'll end with this this thing that's going on called the Convention of States. The Convention of States is allowed for in the Constitution, where the states can get together, and it's a constitutional convention of the states for the purpose of modifying the Constitution. It is another way for that to happen. That is the dumbest, most dangerous idea ever. Why? Because there are no rules. Once the convention starts, it's every man for himself. There are no rules. Literally, there are no rules for how such a convention would be handled. There are no rules for what will and will not be considered. And you have people from different flavors of thinking that want to have that convention because they want their thing to be changed. I mean, there are people who say, well, we want to have a constitutional convention so we can cancel the Second Amendment. We want to have a constitutional convention so that we can have term limits for Supreme Court justices. I mean, there's a whole laundry list of things that people want. Left or right, it doesn't matter. But once you have that uncontrolled, and it is uncontrolled, there's nothing in the Constitution that provides what the rules are for such a thing. And when you have a no-holds-barred kind of forum trying to address what took a lot of work for the Founding Fathers to create the first Constitution, you might as well blow up the country. As a matter of fact, the country would be blown up internally. And so if you hear people, and I've seen, if you hear people saying, well, we need to do it because, that would, no, it would destroy the country because money, you have no idea how much money will be put in trying to get certain things in. You have no idea how much power, you have no idea how much force would be used to get certain things done. It is the most dangerous thing that could ever be done for America. And if whatever happens, America would not exist anymore. Would not exist anymore. So I want to come back. The Constitution the Bill of Rights does not give us anything. It is a warning to government, leave that alone. And government interests, compelling interests that the government says is compelling, public safety, public health is not even a reason to take away an individual right in the Bill of Rights. It doesn't matter how many dead people would result. If there are 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, that is not a compelling interest. Half the country, maybe. Right? Maybe. That is not a compelling interest. How people feel about things. The fact that they don't like the fact that we are violent by nature as a country. That is what keeps us as a country. Those men and women that are dangerous, that keep you safe in your bed at night. That's America. So it wasn't intended to be a rant, but what I really want to get the point across is that governmental interests, public health, public safety, public interest arguments from government, when it touches an individual right in the Bill of Rights, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how people feel. It doesn't matter if 99% of all the people think that there needs to be, in other words, there is no such thing as a common sense restraint on an individual right. Common sense gun laws, common sense speech laws, common sense religion, common sense bullshit. Common sense has no place when it talks about an individual right. It is especially visible in the arguments and the fight for the Second Amendment. So, I'm done. Hope you like my hat, because I was been thinking on this for a minute. I want y'all to think too. If you like the content, subscribe, hit the bell icon when you do, so you get reminded. And as always, thanks for watching, and where you can, carry everywhere all the time. Thanks.